Hi
Hello and
everyone.
hello and welcome. Thanks, Ruby. Just want to say hello. We're here for What's for Lunch today, and we're gonna be having our amazing student host today, Ruby. So all yours, Ruby. Take it away.
Hi, thanks Jessie, and I just want to echo that welcome. I hope you enjoy today's cooking session, learn a few different ideas of what you can cook for lunch, and if you have any questions, feel free to just put them in the chat, and I'll talk through some different variations of this dish that you can make. Hi, I'm Ruby. I'm a Masters of Teaching secondary student in my last semester. And when I graduate, I will be a visual art and design teacher. So applying for jobs coming up now. And before I studied this course, I was at RMIT and I studied a Bachelor in Fine Art where I studied gold and silver smithing. So jewelry making, object making. It was a great course and I really loved that. So that's where my passion for being an art educator has come from. And I am actually the GSA Activities Officer. So if you're a graduate student, head over to GSA, have a look at all the great events that we're running at the moment. And I'm sure Jessie's been sending you some emails of the events as well. So please keep an eye out for that and make sure that you get involved and try some different things. We've got art classes. We've also got the art and craft prize coming up. So if you have a passion for being creative, it doesn't matter what it is. It might be painting, photography, you might make sculptures, you might knit or weave something. Please have a look at that because we've got some amazing prizes that you could be the recipient of, some great awards, and it's just great to be involved with the community like that. So please, if you get a chance, head over and have a look at that. So welcome to my kitchen. It's a bit awkward with the filming, but I think this is a decent angle so you can see what I'm doing. Today I'm going to be making a pasta dish. Now, I'll be honest, I find cooking lunch is quite difficult. I just don't have time. I don't know what to make. I'm sick of eating sandwiches. So I think it's good that we're doing a what's for lunch because I think that can be quite a difficult meal to cook. I know I find it hard, but a few weeks ago, I didn't know what to cook for lunch and I was quite hungry. I looked through my cupboard and my pantry and I just put together this pasta dish with a few ingredients. You don't need many, and I thought it was really delicious and it was super quick and simple. You could even cook this for dinner, and I'm planning on making enough for leftovers, so you can also do that as well. Okay, so I'll just run through the ingredients with you before we start cooking. You can use whatever pasta you want, but I've found this brand that I really like. You can get it from Woolworths. I don't know if Coles has it, but it's really yummy. I like this one. So this is a penne pasta. You could use spaghetti, you could use fettuccine, you could use spirals. Doesn't really matter what pasta you use. You will need some fresh tomatoes. Hi Timothy, I think you just joined. Just going over the ingredients for this pasta dish today. So you'll need some fresh tomatoes. I have two, you could get away with one depending on what you've got. A small onion, you don't need too much, so a small onion or half an onion would be fine. I didn't have any minced garlic, but I do have some fresh, so a bit fancy when you use fresh garlic. I put some baby capers in this pasta dish, so you can get these off the shelf at any supermarket. Salt and pepper, of course, need that. And I'm using these mixed olives. And these ones are a bit different from the jars that you can get at the supermarket on the shelf. These are from a deli and they're actually in oil. So you want to find some mixed olives that are in oil because you're going to use that oil to cook in your sauce. So don't try and not get ones in brine if you can. But if so, just drain the brine away. Just get the olives with no brine. And these mixed ones are like a balsamic sort of mixed olives and they have some sun-dried tomatoes in it. So that's all going to add extra flavor to the dish. And you will need some oil. You can use vegetable, but I'm going to use extra virgin olive oil. Okay, so this isn't going to take too long, but I'm going to talk through some different variations of what else you can throw into this dish, because you can add a lot of different ingredients. Something that I will suggest, which I'm not going to use today just because I'm not going to, is some salami. So you can also add salami into this dish. Now, a lot of people mightn't know that you can actually fry off salami. And I like to get the salamis that are not sliced, but you can use sliced salami. So like a whole salami that you can then cut up however you like. I like to use that. Actually, I do think I have some salami in the fridge, so I might grab that.
Yeah, and while you grab that, Ruby, I was going to ask, is there a particular type of salami that you normally prefer?
I'll grab it and show you.
Awesome. That'd be great. Because I know, for one, I love salami. So as soon as you said that, I was, yes, I'm going to add it into my one.
So I think this should still be okay, the salami, but this is actually homemade salami that my uncle made. So it's quite spicy. It has lots of chili in it, and it's quite oily. So that oil is going to really add to the pasta sauce, because this isn't like a tomato sauce. This is more of an oily sauce for this dish. So let me just check this, because it's been in the fridge, but I think it should be okay. And if you get a salami like this, just make sure you take the skin off it. I don't think I'll use this piece. See how there's like a skin on the salami? You want to just peel that back. You don't want to use that in the cooking.
And I'm going to let you in on a secret, Ruby. I never knew that at first. So I used to cut it and eat it and found it so weird until someone told me.
Well, it's just the casing. So when you make salami, you have a casing that you then not pipe, but you put the meat mixture into, and it kind of helps hold the shape. But you can peel that off, and you don't want that. So I think I will cut some of this up and use it. I mean, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, if it's still edible, but I'm just going to have a little smell.
Do you make this salami as well, or do you get it from your uncle?
I have been there when they've made it, but there was like so many people making it, I just sort of watched. But they did make another batch this year, and it was some ridiculous amount, like 30 kilos worth of salami or something like that. Whatever it was just a lot of salami. But the good thing is, because it's a cured meat, it's cured, it does last quite a long time. So if you keep it fresh, like you seal it up, it's not necessarily going to expire in like a week. So I have the salami in the fridge, but that's just a suggestion. I'm actually not going to use it because I'm not entirely sure if I should, but you can use it, cut it up small, put it in the pan with a little bit of oil and fry it off. And if it gets a bit crispy, that's fine, you can do that. So what I'm going to do is, I like to just boil the kettle and then put the water in the pan, the saucepan, just ready for when I want to put the pasta in. So I'm going to just get some water ready now. And I just put it in the kettle and boil it because it's just much quicker instead of waiting like 15 minutes for it to boil. But you can just wait for it to boil in the pot yourself. Also, if you've got any pasta dishes that you like to cook, feel free to put it in the chat and we can discuss different types of pastas. Okay, so I'm going to turn the pan on and put a little bit of oil in the pan. I don't want it to get too hot, because what happens is if it's way too hot, you'll just burn the onion. So sort of like a medium heat. And I've made this mistake where I've burnt the onion. But my boyfriend was a chef for a long time and he's shown me a lot of tricks. So burnt onion doesn't taste so great.
Does the partner help you with a lot of these cooking recipes, or does he sort of let you do it?
not this one. I asked him for some help, but I kind of knew I wanted to cook this dish. But he cooks a lot of food for us. He's a vegetarian, and so I sort of don't eat as much meat as I used to, but I still like to have a bit of meat when I can. But yeah, he does help me with dishes, but this one's sort of like my dish, so I feel good about that. So I'm going to just cut up this onion. It doesn't have to be perfectly diced. I like to sort of have a little bit of a rough sort of cut on it. And if you don't like onion, you don't have to put it in, but I think it adds a nice little bit of extra flavour. And I don't know how true this trick is, but apparently if you breathe through your mouth while you're cutting up onion, you don't get the onion tears. And I've tried it and it seems to work, but today I'm probably going to get onion tears.
I did not know that, and I am so glad you said that because
Yeah.
we cut onions so much, and it's always such an emotional time in the kitchen.
I know, I hate it. I hate how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
And I feel like even if I'm not cooking it and I'm sitting like over there in the lounge room, it still wafts over into my eyes and I hate it. But apparently if you breathe through your mouth and not your nose, it does something to stop you from feeling like yucky.
Okay, because we've tried everything. Like we've we've put sunglasses on, we've tried goggles, we've done the thing where you set up a little pedestal fan in the kitchen to blow the vapors away.
Oh, really?
We've had windows open, like, it's always emotional and horrible cutting up onions, but I've never heard about the breathing through your mouth. I'm so going to attempt that now.
Try it. Tell me if it works, Jessie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I said, you don't have to cut this up in like small dices. Like that's quite rough what I've just done. And it'll break up when you put it in the pan. And I'm going to put some garlic in. So if you like squish it down, it's easy to get the skin off it. Ugh, now I've got onion eyes. I hate it. Ugh. If I'm shedding tears, it's just from the onions, so don't worry.
Just take it because you're emotional and passionate about the food. That's what it is.
True, yeah.
So with the onion and the garlic, how are you cutting them? So are you doing like really small dice, long shreds?
Well, not really. Like, I don't know if you can see this, but it's kind of, because of the way the onion layers are, when you cut it, it just falls apart, if that makes sense, because there's so many layers. If you cut it up, you'll end up with just little pieces like that, and that's how I cut it up. But you can dice it really fine if you want. Okay, so I've just taken the pan off the heat because I don't want it to get too hot and burn the onions, so it might sizzle a little bit. That's good. If it's sizzling heaps, you might burn it. So I'm going to put the onion in. I'm just going to use some tongs. I like to use tongs, but you can use a wooden spoon. And I'm going to put it back on the heat now. I don't know if you can see, but I'll talk you through the steps. And just watch it because you don't want it to burn, but you want it to sort of start to cook through. It might go like a bit more translucent, so instead of white. And I've got a little bit of garlic. I'm actually going to see if there's another piece because this looks a bit yucky. This piece of garlic kind of is a bit brown on the inside, so I'm going to cut this up and see if that's a bit better. If you can't toss things in the pan, don't worry. You can just use tongs or a spoon to move it around so it's all heating up. evenly.
Are you going to do the big tossing for us?
My boyfriend can do that. I feel like it might end up quite badly, but when I do it, I use a smaller pan and I use my left hand, and it seems to be a bit easier. That's what my partner told me. I don't know why that is the case, but it was a bit easier.
I tried it once with a pancake, and that joke that you see on TV where it flies up and hits the top, that's exactly what happened because of the
really?
wood that hung over the oven. I wasn't used to it, and I flung it, and it smacked against the roof.
Oh. Try to do some tricks, didn't you, Jessie?
Yeah, look, they didn't go so well. So I've learned to not do it, and I just leave it to the partner as well to do the flipping and all the special effects.
So I'm just going to put the boiled water in a separate pot now. And this is for the pasta. And make sure you put some salt in the water. People say that putting salt in the water means the pasta doesn't stick together, but I actually don't think that's true. It just adds a little bit of extra flavour to the pasta. And some people toss oil through the pasta at the end so it doesn't stick together, but we'll have like an oily sauce, so that'll be mixed through the pasta at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to cut up some of this fresh garlic. The other one wasn't so nice. If you don't like garlic, you don't have to put it in, but it does add a little bit of extra flavour to the oily sort of tomatoey pasta sauce. I'm going to use just one clove. Oops. You can use minced garlic out of a jar if you want. I usually use that, but I don't have any left, so I'm going to use fresh garlic. Okay, so as you can see, the onion's not burning and it starts to go brown, so that's good. So what I'm going to do now is wash and cut up some tomato to put into the pan. And you can add chili, fresh chili, chili flakes. I have this small chili that I might put in. I don't know how hot it is.
With regards to tomatoes, Ruby, is there a particular type that you prefer?
I like truss tomatoes, the ones that you can get that like on the vine.
Yep.
But a gourmet tomato or Roma tomato you can use. I would probably suggest using a fresh tomato over a tin of tomatoes for this dish, just because all these ingredients are quite fresh and it's not like a bolognese where it's sort of cooking down quite a lot, if that makes sense.
Yep. And why do you said truss tomatoes, but why? Do you find them like tastier or juicier or?
I think the taste is a little bit different to the gourmet. And okay. My family, we like to just use the truss. So I kind of just like to use the truss as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, it doesn't really matter which tomato you use. You can even use small cherry tomatoes if you want. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm just going to use one tomato. I just very loosely dice this. So the pieces are like this big, maybe 2 centimeters big. You can cut them up a bit smaller if you want. So put them into the pan with the onion and the garlic, and that'll just start to sort of cook a little bit. I'm going to open this jar of papers. This is a new jar I got yesterday. Apparently, if you tap the lid on a surface, like the bench or a chopping board, it makes opening jars much easier.
I can definitely vouch for that.
Yeah, let's see if it works. Oh, there you go. Opened up. So if you don't like, capers are a little bit salty, so that's going to add a little bit of saltiness to the dish. You don't have to use heaps. I'm just going to probably use, I'll get a little bowl. Make sure you don't put heaps of the brine in, so the vinegar, I think it's in vinegar. So you don't want to add too much of the vinegar in with the dish because it will just start to make the flavors of the sauce a bit imbalanced. So I'm just going to try and leave the brine behind. So I'm probably putting in about 2 teaspoons, 2 or 3 teaspoons, but they're just adding a little bit of flavour and texture to the sauce. Okay. I'll just sort of start mixing this through. I've got the onion, the tomato, capers, garlic, and I'm going to put the olives in now. So, yeah, these olives are from the deli and they're really nice. There's a really nice deli in the Docklands near the Woolworths. And this has a bit of orange rind, some sun-dried tomatoes, and it's in like a balsamic sort of oil. So it has a lot of flavour. So I would recommend trying to get some mixed olives from a deli if you can. If you're going to use jarred olives in brine, just drain them out. So don't add too much of that brine to it. And this is going to add, so you can use the oil in here too. I'm going to use a bit of the oil. I'm actually just going to put them all in because I love olives. So this oil is going to sort of be that base for the sauce. So it's not like I'm not using a jar of pasta sauce. It's just going to be like quite an oily, fresh sauce that you're going to sort of mix through the pasta. So I'm just going to sit that on a low heat just to sort of brew. I'm going to put a little bit of pepper in here and a little bit of salt. Not too much because there's already a bit of saltiness from the capers and olives. Okay, this is looking nice. I'm going to put my pasta in now. Depending on how much you want to make, I'm not going to put the whole packet in, probably about half. And if you want to have leftovers for the next day, yeah, you can cook a bit more pasta. So make sure you put some salt in boiling water. Now, people, time the pasta for 12 minutes, but I just like eat it to check the texture myself. That's how I test it. And my partner, he'll bring over a piece of pasta saying, Ruby, can you please just check if this pasta's cooked? So he trusts me that it has a little bit al dente, so a little bit of bite. There's nothing worse, I think, than having mushy pasta. Pasta should not be mushy. So if you aren't confident with timing it, when it's cooked a bit more, so maybe in like 10 minutes, I just get a little bit and just have a little bite of it to see if I'm happy with the texture. It will probably tell you on the packet though how long to cook it for. This sauce is starting to look really nice. So the tomato is cooking down a little bit. And this is going to be really nice when we mix the pasta through at the end. So the oil is going to coat all of the pasta. It's going to be quite loose.
Ruby,
it's not going to be a very...
Can I ask, are you able to quickly hold that back up at the camera so I can just take a quick screenshot of it? Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Love it.
So the difference, I guess, between bolognese or a sort of rich tomatoey pasta compared to this is you're not going to have as much sauce to pasta ratio, if that makes sense. So, I mean, I like to have a meaty bolognese sauce with like a lot of meat and tomato, whereas this is just going to sort of lightly coat the pasta and you have a little bit of those ingredients sort of mixed throughout. So, I don't know if that's a good explanation, but that's how I would describe the difference. I suppose you could liken this dish to what a puttanesca pasta is. So puttanesca is sort of like a bit of this and a bit of that. Usually olives, capers, sometimes people put, I think, some like breadcrumbs in there that can sort of thicken the sauce up a little bit. But I suppose that's what you could call this sort of pasta dish. So it's sort of like a bit of this and a bit of that, whatever leftovers you've got in your pantry. And if you're like me, you'll usually always have olives in the fridge. And I have capers in the fridge, but I just ran out. So they last forever. You can just put them back in the fridge and use them at a later date. I'm just going to take this, I'm going to switch this to a smaller plane, just because this is the largest one. I don't want it to get too hot. So I'm just going to move it to the slightly smaller one. Okay, so while we're waiting for the pasta to cook, I'll make a few suggestions on how else you might be able to make this dish. So if you want, you could cut up some zucchini, dice some zucchini and put that in, but I would suggest putting in a little bit later when you're almost finished, because zucchini can get a little bit soggy, a little bit mushy, and I think it's nice if it's got a little bit of bite to it. So you can dice that up and throw that in maybe 5 minutes before you're about to finish cooking. That way it's not too soggy. Likewise, you could put some eggplant in there if you want. I believe, and I could be wrong, I don't know about pasta, but my partner usually salts the eggplant. So you cut it, you slice it up into slices, and then you put it on a plate and you put salt on it, and that draws out all of the moisture from the eggplant, because you know eggplant can be quite wet, soggy, if that makes sense. That draws out the moisture so it's not that sort of consistency. So it does, it's not pickling, but just adding that salt, you can see once you've done that, I think it's maybe even 20 minutes, you can see all this liquid on the plate, so the salt draws the liquid out, so then you can use that in whatever you're cooking. So you could do that, or you could just throw it in the pan. I usually don't put eggplant in, but you can get jars from the supermarket of, what's the word? Like you can get jars from the supermarket that have like artichoke and sun-dried tomato and like a mixed sort of medley of Mediterranean sort of vegetables, and that's also really nice to put in, especially if it's in oil. So you can use that oil, and I usually keep those jars with the oil in it. So once I've used all the vegetables, I'll keep the oil, because that's got a lot of flavour that you can keep throwing into different dishes. Usually it's got a bit of chili and all those flavours from the veggies. So that's good to just keep those little jars of oil to use in a dish like this another time. Again, you could add some salami into it, fry off a bit of salami. I'm not trusting this salami, so I'm going to have to get some new one. But this is the salami that my uncle made. It's like a very spicy chili salami, and I just cut that up and just dice that up and fry that off sort of at the start of when I'm cooking. And that'll add a lot of heat and spice. This one has chili and fennel, so that adds a lot of nice flavour to it. If you wanted to have a side dish with this, you could make a salad. I like just a classic Italian salad with some Persian feta I like Persian feta because it's a little bit softer. You could use Greek feta. Some fresh tomatoes, some cucumber, olives, because I love olives, and some mixed salad leaves. And I like to do a little bit of a balsamic dressing. Let me see. And oil. So this balsamic dressing is really nice for salads. Adds a little bit of extra flavour to what can be a little bit plain sometimes. And if you are really hungry, you could make some garlic bread. So you can buy it, but I made my own garlic butter the other week, which was literally just butter and some minced garlic and some salt and pepper, I think. And you just get like a food processor and blitz it up so it's soft, and it mixes it together. And I had a baguette, a breadstick, and I cut it up and just put a generous amount of butter in each slice, and then put it in a bit of aluminium foil, and then you cook it, and it's really yummy. So if you want to try making your own garlic bread, I would suggest that way. Make your own garlic butter and put it in. Then you can choose whatever bread you want.
How long did you cook your garlic bread for?
Maybe 20 minutes, because it's not frozen. If you buy frozen garlic bread, it might take a bit longer. I'm just going to test this. Still needs a bit more. You can tell because it's a little bit hard, and you can see it's not fully cooked all the way through the pasta. Yeah, so maybe about 20 minutes for the garlic bread.
And is that just on like 180 degrees or?
Yeah, about 180 degrees. You can check it. So if you are a bit worried it might burn, well, it's in the foil, so it shouldn't burn as opposed to an open oven. But you can just take it out and look. But because it's not frozen, it's basically just heating the bread up, toasting a little bit, and melting the butter through.
Yep.
What you can do is you can freeze it after you've made it. So I made 2 of them, and I just wrapped it up and put it in the freezer. So, you know, you can take it out and cook it from frozen another time.
That's a good idea.
How long would you cook it from frozen? Just out of curiosity.
Well, let me just think. Garlic breads usually have about 20 minutes to half an hour written on the packet, and that's if it's frozen or cold. So if it's frozen, maybe 25 to 30 minutes, just because it has to thaw out while it's cooking. On about 180. If you go too high, you can tend to just burn the outside and not actually cook and thaw it through. So don't put the oven up to 250 degrees, or else you'll char your garlic bread. In fact, I've got a funny story. A friend of mine, I used to live at a student residence before I moved out, and a friend of mine had this very bizarre dish that he had for dinner one night, and it was apparently garlic bread, but it was so charred and black it didn't look like garlic bread, and to add some flavour to it, he put some honey on it. So he had charred black garlic bread with a bit of honey to, add that extra bit of sweetness to it. So I wouldn't recommend that. That's why you shouldn't, you should check your garlic bread, or else it'll be completely crispy and black. And I don't think you can save it with honey, but he ate it, so.
I was going to say, look, it's not my first choice to say garlic bread to put honey on it, but if he liked it, sure.
I don't think he liked it, but he ate it anyway.
I love that. That's great. Have you made garlic bread before, Shari?
Yeah, we used to get old bread rolls when I worked at the restaurant and turn them into garlic bread.
That's a good idea.
Is that because they were a little more stale, or?
Yeah, they're a bit stale. Putting them in the oven can bring them back, and also the butter does kind of melt down to make them a bit softer again.
Yeah, you're right. You can definitely use like more, and you can also use more stale bread, and you can blitz it up if you want to make breadcrumbs for something. So you can use older bread for that too, because you're just going to be toasting it anyway. So my pasta's finished. I had a little test of it and it's cooked. I'm going to drain it in a strainer in the sink. Now, I forgot to mention what you can do to thicken this sauce up a little bit is you can get a spoon and put a bit of the pasta water into the sauce, into the pan, because starch, I believe, from the pasta. So it's more like a starchy water. So you can add that in to thicken it up a bit, and if you want it to be a little bit more loose, so have a bit more of that oily sort of sauce, you can do that. I've just tipped the pasta straight into the pan that had the tomato olive sort of sauce, and now I'm just sort of mixing it through and tossing it through. I'll do it over here though. Now, I think you have to finish this dish with some parmesan on top because I love parmesan. You don't have to put it on, but I think it adds a little bit of extra flavour, and that parmesan's a little bit salty, so when it melts through, it's quite yummy. Okay.
Is there a particular type of parmesan that you suggest?
If you're not buying a piece of parmesan you're grating or cutting yourself, I like to usually get the Milel from the supermarket. I don't have any on me, but I do have a different one. Let me find it. So I tried this one from Woolworths the other day, and that's quite yummy actually. And then we got some more parmesan from Aldi. This one's shredded, not shaved. So this one's shaved, this one's shredded. So I'm going to use this because that's open. I'm just going to get a bowl. If you can't see me, it's just because I'm getting things from the cupboard.
Behind the scenes making of the movie.
Yes. So let me just make a little bit of room. Okay, so I've tipped the strained pasta into the pan that had the olives and the tomatoes and the capers, and I've just mixed it through with my tongs. So it's sort of coating all the pasta with the yummy, oily goodness. Depending on how hungry you are, just plate up as how you feel. And I'm going to put some parmesan on top. So all of this I'm not eating, I'm going to put in a container for later and use that for dinner or lunch tomorrow.
Wait, can you bring that to the camera so I can take a photo, please?
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to get the angle right.
Perfect, thank you.
So this dish wouldn't take very long. It obviously took a bit longer today because I'm just walking you through each step of cutting things up and how long to cook things for, but you could really cook this in about 15 or 20 minutes.
Oh, that's perfect, especially when you're in the middle of studies and everything. That's
Yeah.
a good start time.
Basically, you could just start cooking off your onion, put your pasta in, and try and have it all ready at the same time. So about 12, 15 minutes, you could sort of have that all ready. So you're taking the pasta out, draining that, and then you're tossing it straight through the sauce. So you don't need to cook this onion and tomato and pasta sauce down for ages. You can have it a little bit more, like less cooked through. So if you like your tomato not to be as cooked, it might be a little bit more, have a bit more bite to it, as opposed to when you're cooking it down a little bit more. So just clean this edge off a little bit. So I put some parmesan on top. So you've got capers, olives that were in the nice balsamic oil. There's some sun-dried tomatoes that were in with the olives, capers, onion, and garlic. So that's the lunch dish of the day.
I love that. Thank you so much for that. And I have to be painful because I didn't get it quick enough. But can you hold that up one more time so we can get the finished product?
Let me
These are the
And you
pictures
have
we
to
put in the
smile.
recipes. So
I love that. That's perfect. Thank you so much for that. And
well, my pleasure.
no, and like I said, the fact that it's a pasta dish, I love pasta dishes. So no, I know I'm already going to go and make this now for my lunch. So that was awesome. Did you have any suggestions or any pointers on what people should be careful to avoid? So I know you mentioned burning the onions was a good pointer.
Definitely, just make sure that, and I've made this mistake many times, so I'm speaking from experience. Try not to have the pan with the oil too hot when you put the onion in, because you'll hear it, it'll sizzle, steam will go everywhere, and then it'll start browning really quickly, and it just has a yucky taste to it. So I'd have the pan a little bit lower on the heat, so you're gently cooking those onions instead of kind of burning them, basically. So you don't need to have this heat with the pan on too high. So you don't need to sort of, say if you're frying meat, you can have a slightly higher heat, but this has no meat in it. And even if you're using salami, it doesn't have to be too hot. You could also maybe throw some anchovies in as well, just to add a little bit of saltiness. So there's a lot of things you could put in. Like I said, you could put some zucchini or eggplant in with this. If you like chili, you could throw some chili. You could even put some fresh capsicum, or I have some here, I think. Like some grilled peppers. So it's capsicum that's sort of been soaked in some oil, so you could put that in as well. Sometimes if you get the mixed olives though, that has some of those extra things in it, so that all just adds a little bit of flavor. And if, like I mentioned, if it's in oil, so if the olives are in oil, or these I think are in oil too, you can use that oil to cook with, because that has a little bit of flavor. It's got some herbs in it, and it's sort of been preserving in there, so you can use that oil. And like I said, if you've used all the capsicum out of that jar, you can just keep that oil and use it in a dish like this another time.
I never even thought about that. That's such a good point. Instead of
Yeah.
waiting.
Yeah.
I love that. And Shari, did you have any questions or anything?
yeah, Ruby, one of the things we talked about last week was kind of like growing herbs in your garden. Is there any, if you were to like have a small herb garden, what kind of herbs would you add to this? You know, if you could just take a fresh cutting or something.
Yes, I do have herbs, but they're literally all dead, so I have to start again. I would say some parsley would be quite nice in this dish. That would actually really add a little bit of freshness to it. So if you had some parsley, you could use the curly one or the continental one, but I think that would be nice to add into the dish. You could even put a few chili flakes with it if you like a bit of heat. And you could add a fresh chili, or the minced chili you can buy in a jar. I think I might have some.
Yeah, what I really like about this recipe is, like you said, everything kind of is shelf stable. So it's just bits and pieces that you're taking out. They'll last, the ingredients will last. And
Definitely.
so, yeah, it sounds like it's all kind of in-house and there already. So it's one of those, just throwing it together from what's left over.
Yes, it's quite literally how I made this dish the other week. And it's not like my own creation. Like, this exists as a pasta recipe in itself, but it is just throwing a bit of this and a bit of that. So it depends on what you've got in your pantry. I mean, I've usually got a lot of Italian styled things, like the olives and the peppers, because I'm Italian. I like eating those foods. But if you don't, these things, you don't have to use the whole jar. So if you get a jar of, if you get some olives, or you get some marinated capsicum or peppers, you don't have to use the whole jar. So it's not going to just be one dish. You'll get a few dishes and a few different types of dishes out of these ingredients.
Amazing. That's awesome. I mean, look, like I said, I love that it's quick, it's easy, and it's simple. And I think so many students are going to love that as well, which is going to be great. I don't have any other questions, except that I'm going to go type all this up into a recipe list now, and a recipe to follow. So I'll email it to you, Ruby, to check over, and then we can pop that up on the channel for people to watch and follow the recipe. But while we've got you, because you are the GSA activities officer, did you want to quickly do another recap on activities that you have coming up that students can be involved in?
Yeah, sure. So the big events that I'd like to talk about to get everyone involved is the art and craft prize. So last students, so graduate students, whether you're doing fine art or not, if you've got a hobby, if you like painting, photography, you can submit a piece of work. So this year our theme is sustainability. So that could be on a global sense. So, being sustainable in the world, it might be how you are sustainable, maybe how you're eco-friendly, how you relate to that. Even just, you can interpret it as how you are sustainable in yourself. So do you practice meditation, self-care? How do you look after yourself? So it's quite open really to interpretation. But that's our theme for the year. So if your work relates to that somehow, that's amazing. And leading up to that, we've had a few workshops. So we've actually got one this afternoon at 3:30 till 5 with facilitator Alan Collins. She is a Master of Teaching secondary student, and she's running the Artist Statement Workshop. So that workshop is talking you through how to talk about your artwork. And it's aimed for the art and craft prize, but if you need some help with talking about your work, if you have a small business, if you're entering an exhibition outside of this one, it's just going to be a really great hands-on workshop, getting you familiarized with how to talk about your work. And you can really apply this to a lot of different things. So even if you have to write a bio in a resume, or you might be applying for something else, it's going to be really great to help you talk about yourself, sell what you're talking about, and explain the intentions behind your work. So that's this afternoon. And just general activities that are usually running on a weekly and fortnightly basis include yoga sessions. We've got the GSA art class, which I couldn't attend the last one, but I've attended heaps and they're amazing. So you'll be learning some painting, some drawing, and Neela has been facilitating them and she's amazing. So I would really encourage you to join in with those art classes. They're really fun. But if you want some more things to add to your calendar, you can head to the GSA website or the GSA Facebook page. So there's heaps of things coming up that you can get involved with and share with your friends, because I didn't know what GSA was when I came to Melbourne Uni. And I heard people going, GSA, GSA. And I'm like, what's GSA? And GSA is the Graduate Student Association. So it's the Graduate Student Union of Melbourne Uni.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I agree. I definitely vouch the art classes with Neela are fantastic. And she's so lovely. And the way that she teaches the students and really works with everyone, I think is great, because being someone like myself who can't draw a stick figure, I could go in, and the way Neela explains things and the techniques she does, I actually feel like I can understand and do some of the art, as opposed to some classes I've gone to, I feel so incapable because they're just so advanced and don't have the skills to really break it down. So I think Neela's been doing fantastic. So definitely something I agree to go to. And I love the idea of the Sustainable Art Prize. Like, that's such a great thing. And especially with what everyone's dealing with now and sustainability being such a major issue, I reckon that's fantastic. So what I'll do is I will email everyone that registered the recipe and the link to the video. And I'll also pop in the link to GSA's website for the different activities as well. But look, on behalf of everyone, thank you so much, Ruby, for coming on today and doing that. I don't want to keep you too long because I don't want it to go cold. So enjoy your lunch, and hopefully we'll see you at the next event.
No, thanks so much for having me, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. And it was great to just chat to you, Jessie and Shari. And I'll send you a bit more of a step-by-step recipe. I know you've written it down, but I can also look at that. But, you've seen what to do. It's pretty easy. It's pretty quick. And I'm going to eat it, so it's warm. So thanks, guys.
Enjoy. Thanks for that.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.